Back in 2022, I worked as the CCTV surveillance manager at the National Financial Investigation Agency (NFIA) in Equatorial Guinea. My job was straightforward: monitor all feeds, store data, and report any suspicious activity, or so I thought. My boss was none other than Baltasar Ngonga, the enigmatic and sharply dressed head of the agency. He had this calm, calculating demeanor, the kind that made even seasoned investigators pause before speaking out of turn. But as sharp as he was with numbers and policy, Baltasar had a weakness: women. Every week, different women would show up at his private office on the top floor, usually after hours, dressed a little too glamorously for a meeting about financial crimes. I knew exactly what was going on. After all, the surveillance system was my kingdom. Nothing happened in that building without me seeing it first. One day, Baltasar called me into his office alone. The room smelled of expensive cologne and power. He didn't waste time. "I trust you," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I need all footage from this office cleared every Friday night. Non-negotiable. And of course, your discretion will be well compensated." He slid an envelope across the desk. Thick. Cash. Dollars. From then on, I became the silent protector of his image. No one questioned why the camera feeds in that corridor occasionally malfunctioned. No one suspected the truth except me. Things took a strange turn a few months later. It was a stormy Friday night. I was the last one in the surveillance room, sipping stale coffee, going over feeds. That's when Baltasar walked in. Not a call. Not a knock. Just him, standing behind me in silence. "You're always watching," he said softly. I turned, and for the first time, his expression wasn't just business, it was something else. Intrigue. Curiosity. Maybe even desire. That night, I didn't just erase the footage. I became part of it. What started as hush money and camera blackouts spiraled into a twisted web of secrets, privilege, and forbidden power. I wasn't just protecting his image anymore, I was tangled in it. After that stormy night, everything changed. What was once a cold, transactional arrangement turned into something darker. Baltasar didn't just want me to protect him anymore. He wanted access to my time, my mind, my body. It started with late-night calls. "Come to my office," he'd say, no explanation. I'd walk in, the lights dimmed, the scent of his cologne already filling the space before I even reached the door. No cameras. I made sure of that. He began calling me his daily food. "I don't even need breakfast anymore," he'd whisper, brushing past me like I was an appetizer he couldn't wait to devour. "You keep me alive." And he meant it. Every day, sometimes twice. Between press conferences, internal audits, board meetings, he always found time for me. He'd send his secretary home early, lock the doors, and I'd find myself pressed against the polished desk that had seen more secrets than any filing cabinet in the building. I became routine. Like caffeine for his control. Like nicotine for his nerves. Some days he was gentle. Other days, it felt like I was the only thing he could take his rage out on: rage from political pressure, media leaks, or opposition breathing down his neck. And I took it. All of it. Not because I had no choice. Because part of me liked being wanted that much. Needed. Obsessed over. He'd whisper, "I don't even trust my shadow, but I trust you." Funny how the man who ran an entire national agency, who could crush reputations with a signature, chose me to be his escape. His release. His secret. But secrets rot. And power never comes without a price. And as I stood there one morning, buttoning up my shirt in his private washroom while he straightened his tie in the mirror like nothing ever happened, I realized. I was no longer just protecting his image. I was his image. And images. Eventually, someone always wants to see the unedited version. Even as he called me his daily food, even as he whispered things that made me feel like I was the only one who really knew him, Baltasar never stopped bringing them. The others. Sometimes they came during the day. Sometimes late at night. High heels clicking through the marble halls, silk dresses clinging to them like shadows. Different names. Different faces. Same destination. His office. And the worst part? I watched it all. From my chair in the surveillance room, surrounded by flickering monitors and the low hum of the servers, I saw every smirk, every gesture, the way his hand would rest on their lower back as he guided them inside, the way he'd tilt his head, that practiced charm I once thought was mine alone. At first, I told myself it was politics, appearances, business meetings. But that lie cracked the moment I saw him push one of them up against his window, the same window he once pulled me to, with the lights of Malibu glowing behind us like we were gods. I didn't cry. Not once. I watched. Silent. Numb. Because the one thing he never knew was that I had reprogrammed the system. Hidden feeds. Secret angles. My eyes were everywhere. He might have been in control on paper, but in that building, I saw everything. And so I watched him cheat on me with the same hunger he used to consume me. The same hands. The same desk. The same lies. And every time I wiped the footage clean for him, my fingers hesitated, just slightly hovering over the save option. Wondering what it would mean if I didn't delete this time. What it would feel like to show the world the man they praised, the man who called me his. I was loyal. I was quiet. I was his shadow. Baltasar surprised me. It was a Tuesday. The kind of day that felt like any other, hot, heavy air pressing against the windows of the NFIA building, paperwork piled high, camera feeds rolling endlessly like a loop that never stopped. I was in my usual chair, eyes scanning the monitors, pretending not to care that I hadn't seen him all day. Pretending not to notice that 3 different women had walked into his office that week. And then, just before sunset, I got a message. Room 19. Now. I didn't reply. Just stood up, heart half bitter, half curious. That room wasn't his office. It was one of the locked quarters in the upper floor, usually off limits. When I walked in, the lights were dim. A small table in the middle. On it 2 paper bags. La Perla tags peeking out. I reached in soft lace, deep red, black satin, delicate and expensive. Bras, panties, matching sets. Stuff I'd never buy for myself. And behind me, his voice. I was watching you watching me. I knew you were hurting. I turned around. He wasn't in a suit. Just a white shirt, sleeves rolled, a calm I hadn't seen in weeks. His expression was unreadable, but his hands were gentle as they took the bag from mine and set it down. No cameras tonight, he said. Just you. Just me. He kissed me like he was making up for every woman he ever brought into that office. Every secret he didn't tell me. Every part of him I thought I'd lost. Slow, deep, and endless. He kissed my neck, my collarbone, my scars visible and invisible. We didn't even make it to the bed for a while. We just stood there in the dark, tangled in silence, breath and heat, as if the world outside that room didn't exist. And that night, for once, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt seen, owned, not controlled, wanted, not used. And as I lay beside him, wrapped in sheets that still smelled like power and guilt, I let myself believe, for just one night, that maybe I wasn't just his daily food. Maybe I was the one thing he couldn't replace. Next day, Baltasar called me into his office a day before the trip, closed the blinds, locked the door. There's a meeting in Barta. Private sector, some offshore bankers, a few government faces. You're coming. I raised an eyebrow. Since when does surveillance attend meetings? He leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy on me. You're not going for the meeting. I didn't ask questions. I never needed to. When Baltasar wanted something, he made it happen. We flew out in a sleek black government jet, just him, 2 bodyguards, and me. I sat beside him, dressed for business, but my thighs were bare underneath the long coat he asked me to wear. He didn't touch me. Not yet. But every now and then, his fingers brushed my wrist, just enough to say, later. We landed in Barta late afternoon. The hotel? Presidential suite, of course 2 rooms, but only 1 bed was ever meant to be used. He spent hours in the boardroom that night, talking oil, international transfers, coded shell companies. I sat at the edge, quiet, eyes down, just another shadow in the background. But his gaze kept slipping, watching me instead of the contracts. I felt it in the way his voice dropped, in the way he dismissed the room 20 minutes early. We didn't even make it to dinner. The elevator ride up was silent, tense. When we reached the penthouse, he unlocked the door and stepped aside, letting me walk in first. The lights were already dim, city lights flickering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the ocean in the distance, black and endless. On the bed was a black velvet box. "Open it," he said, his voice low. Inside, the most delicate lingerie I'd ever touched. Deep emerald silk with gold lace. A bra that felt like water between my fingers. A matching thong that left nothing to the imagination. He didn't say a word, just watched as I picked it up, his gaze hungry. "Put it on," he said, finally. "I want to see you in what I bought." In the bathroom, I slipped out of my clothes. Looked at myself in the mirror. I was still the CCTV manager, still the girl who erased his secrets, but here, in this, I looked like one of them. No more than them. I was the one who knew him. When I stepped out, he didn't move at first. Just looked. Then he crossed the room in 2 strides, and suddenly I was against the wall, his hands firm on my hips, his mouth on my collarbone. "I don't want you as my employee tonight," he whispered against my skin. "You're mine. Just mine." He didn't rush. He didn't just take. He unraveled me. Laid me out on the silk sheets. Kissed me like he was drinking something he'd been dying for. His mouth moved down my body like he was memorizing the taste of every inch. And when he finally entered me, it wasn't raw like the other nights, it was slow. Intentional. Deep. Like he wanted to own every breath. We moved together until we forgot where we were, until the sound of skin, breath, and whispers drowned out the world. The sea crashed outside the windows, and he pulled me on top of him, gripping my waist like he never wanted to let go. He kissed me all night. Not just my lips, my neck, my hands, the inside of my thighs. Every time I started to drift off, he'd pull me back, mouth against my skin, whispering things he'd never dare say in daylight. "You calm the rage in me. You're the only one who sees me. I hate needing you, but I do." And I believed him. For that night, I let myself believe I was more than a secret. That maybe I was the only thing keeping the real man inside him from collapsing. We didn't sleep. By dawn, he was already up, shirtless, standing by the window with a cigar in one hand and a coffee in the other. The man everyone feared, looking fragile for just a second. Then he turned to me, all business again. Back in his suit. Back in control. "There's a car waiting for you downstairs," he said. "Don't use the front entrance. They talk." I got dressed in silence. He didn't kiss me goodbye. But as I walked out of the suite, sore and dazed, the black velvet box still in my bag, I knew he wouldn't forget. And neither would I. The ride back from Barta was silent. Baltasar sat beside me in his tailored grey suit, sunglasses on, pretending to read a report. But his leg pressed against mine the whole flight. Not once did he look at me. Not a word. Not a glance. Just silence. Back at the agency, everything snapped back to normal like nothing had happened. He was back to being the sharp-tongued director, barking orders, taking meetings, and pretending he hadn't spent the night whispering my name into silk pillows. I told myself not to care. But then she came in. It was 2 days after we returned. I was back in the surveillance room, my little glass kingdom of monitors and silence. I was sipping my bitter office coffee, flipping through camera feeds like usual. Nothing unusual, until the elevator chimed. She stepped out like a vision, heels clicking, red dress hugging curves like it had been sewn directly onto her skin. Sunglasses. Diamond earrings. Hair up in a tight, elegant twist. I knew who she was the moment I saw her. Nardia, the wife of ex-minister Abyung, the man who ran infrastructure, oil contracts, and half of Equatorial Guinea's hidden millions. She wasn't just a wife. She was royalty in her own right. Untouchable. Married into power but born from old money. And now walking straight into Baltasar's private office. I froze. There was no appointment on the log. No meeting scheduled. The door shut behind her. And my screen kept rolling. For 15 minutes, nothing. Then the office feed flickered back on because I had made sure some cameras always recorded, even when he thought they didn't. And there it was. Baltasar standing behind her, his hand on her waist. She didn't pull away. She turned, looked him dead in the eye, and kissed him first. I watched him lift her onto his desk. The same desk he had taken me on. The same spot. He pulled her dress up slowly. She laughed as he kissed her neck, his hands pulling down the straps of her designer lingerie. I saw everything. I heard everything. The gasps. The low moans. His voice low, deep, familiar. Quiet, Nardia, the walls talk. She didn't care. Neither did he. And me. I sat frozen in my chair, fingers gripping the armrest, heart sinking like a stone into the ocean. I had been his shadow, his secret, his comfort. But to her, I watched him be charming, gentle, seductive. Everything he was when he wanted to win someone, not when he needed them. There's a difference. I was his fix, his anchor. But she was the game, the thrill, the danger. And when it was over, when she adjusted her red dress, kissed him again, and walked out like she had just finalized a business deal, I knew. I wasn't jealous of the sex. I was jealous of how free she looked when she left. She didn't erase the footage. She didn't cover his secrets. She was a power piece. A woman who had nothing to lose. But me. I stayed behind the screen. Watching. Editing. Pretending like it didn't burn. Baltasar wasn't just the director of the National Financial Investigation Agency, he was the puppet master of an entire empire of shadows. And his favorite strings to pull weren't politicians or foreign investors. They were the wives. Not just any wives, the wives of power. Nardia wasn't the only one. She was just the first I caught in the act. But once I saw her leave with lipstick smudged and confidence higher than a general's ego, I started digging. And what I found made my stomach twist. There was Mireille, the quiet, elegant wife of a national bank executive. She wore silk scarves and always smelled like jasmine. She visited Baltasar every Tuesday at exactly 1:13 p.m. She brought wine in her purse, and sometimes, she stayed so long her driver had to circle the block twice. Then came Clarice, tall, dark-skinned beauty with a sharp tongue, married to one of the most feared military advisors in the country. Clarice was bold. She used the back entrance. She came in wearing sunglasses at night and left with her blouse buttoned wrong. I watched her laugh as she adjusted herself in the elevator mirror like she owned him. And in between them there was me. Always me. His daily fix. His emotional dumping ground. The only one who knew every name, every time, every angle. He'd come to me right after them sometimes. After Mireille. After Clarice. Like nothing happened. You always feel like home, he'd whisper as he slipped inside me in his locked office, one hand on my neck, the other gripping my thigh. But how could I be home if he never stayed? He fed off the danger. The power of knowing these women came to him willingly, all while their husbands trusted him with their nation's money. Sleeping with them wasn't just pleasure, it was domination. It was proof that no one, not even the highest-ranking officials, could control him. And I knew it. I watched it. And still, I stayed. Maybe I was addicted, too. To the power. To being the one who knew, the one who erased the footage and held his secrets tighter than any safe in that damn building. But every time I saw him unbutton Clarice's blouses, every time I saw Mireille's red nails drag down his back, every time he came to me right after and whispered my name like it was a confession, something in me cracked. He thought I was his shadow. But shadows only exist when there's light. And the more women he touched, the more I felt myself becoming something else. The fall of Baltasar. It didn't happen all at once. Scandals like this never do. They simmer quietly beneath the surface until someone triggers the explosion. For months, I kept watching. Kept recording. Kept saving, not deleting. Baltasar didn't know I had stopped erasing the files. He didn't know I had created a hidden archive coded, encrypted, and stored outside the system. Every visit, every moan, every whispered promise to married women of the elite. Every time he finished with one and came straight to me like I was just another checkpoint on his ego trip. He underestimated me. They always do. What broke the silence wasn't my rage. It was Clarice. One night, her husband found a message on her phone, an appointment reminder. Meeting with B. That's all it said. But he wasn't stupid. B wasn't a name. It was a warning. And when he started pulling strings, cameras, logs, patterns, he came straight to the agency. By then, Baltasar was already nervous. The whispers were getting louder. Nardia had stopped coming. Mireille had moved to France without a word. And Clarice didn't show up at all. No more perfume in the hallway. No lipstick stains on his shirts. He came to me one morning, jaw tight, suit sharp. "You've been quiet." I didn't answer. "You erased everything, right?" he asked. I looked him dead in the eye. No. That was the last time we were alone. Within a week, the entire agency was under investigation. Anonymous footage surfaced, edited, stitched, damning. Clips of Baltasar and the wives in his office. Audio. Faces. Names. He denied it all, of course. Claimed it was fake. Claimed someone was framing him. But the tapes were real. And the worst part? They were too real. The court didn't care that the women were married. The government didn't care who seduced who. What mattered was the embarrassment, the headlines. Director of National Financial Investigation Agency accused of sleeping with ministers' wives. Dozens of surveillance files leaked. Systemic abuse of power. Then they dug deeper. Bank transfers. Gifts. Trips. Lavish lingerie. And my name was all over the travel logs, the access cards, the deleted files folder. They called me his accomplice. They said I protected him. They weren't wrong. I was fired without appeal. Branded. Blacklisted. Overnight, I went from the woman behind the cameras to the woman beneath his desk in public memory. My face on gossip blogs. Rumors that I had seduced him, that I wanted it. And Baltasar, he was arrested in his home. They said he didn't even resist. When they opened his safe, they found tapes, copies of his own. He'd kept souvenirs of every affair. Like trophies. Like proof of his reach. He collapsed during the second hearing. Stress, they said. Maybe guilt. Maybe just the weight of knowing the empire he built was gone. He hasn't spoken since. Some say he's sick. Others say he's just broken. But I know better. I know what it feels like when power runs out. And the silence that follows. It sounds a lot like justice.